Katya stopped believing in love the day she turned 30. Not because of age, but because of exhaustion. She had tried. God knows she had tried. 3 serious relationships, dozens of dates, countless nights wondering what was wrong with her. In St. Petersburg, she was considered successful. A senior architect at a prestigious firm, an apartment overlooking the Neva River, friends who envied her independence. But at night, when the city lights reflected off the frozen river, she felt hollow. The men she dated were impressive on paper: a lawyer, a surgeon, an entrepreneur. They knew how to order wine, how to talk about art, how to look good in photographs, but they didn't know how to see her. Really see her. They saw the blonde hair, the high cheekbones, the designer clothes she wore to client meetings. They never asked about the sketches hidden in her drawer, the buildings she dreamed of designing, the way she still cried during sad movies, even though she pretended not to. After her last breakup, she made a decision. Love is for naive people, she told her best friend Olga over vodka one winter night. I'm done chasing fairy tales. Olga shook her head. You're not done. You're just tired. Same thing, Katya said. But she was wrong. 6 months later, her firm won a contract to design a beach resort in Southeast Asia. The client wanted a team to visit the site, understand the culture, collaborate with local engineers. Katya's boss called her into his office. Pack light clothes, he said. You're going to the Philippines. She had never heard of Palawan. When she stepped off the plane in Puerto Princesa, the humidity hit her like a wall. She was used to -20 degrees. Here, the air was thick, warm, alive. Palm trees swayed in the breeze. The sky was impossibly blue. Everything felt too bright, too loud, too much. Her team checked into a hotel on the beach. That first night, unable to sleep because of the heat and the time difference, Katya walked along the shore. The sand was still warm under her feet. Waves whispered against the beach. She stood there, arms crossed, watching the ocean. First time in the Philippines? She turned. A man stood a few meters away, holding a fishing net. He wasn't tall, maybe 5'7". Tanned skin, messy black hair. A smile that reached his eyes. Is it that obvious? She asked in English. He laughed. You're wearing a jacket. It's 32 degrees. She looked down at her linen blazer. Old habits. In Russia, you always carried a jacket. She felt foolish. I'm Katya, she said, slipping it off. Raphael. But everyone calls me Rafi. He was a fisherman, born and raised in this village. His family had been fishing these waters for 4 generations. He spoke about the ocean the way she spoke about architecture, with reverence, with passion, with a connection she recognized. They talked until the sun started to rise. She learned he had 2 younger sisters in college, that he woke at 4 every morning to fish, that his father died when he was 16, and he became the man of the house overnight, that he had never left Palawan but dreamed of seeing snow someday. When she mentioned she was from St. Petersburg, his eyes widened. The city of white nights, he said. I read about it once, where the sun never sets in summer. She was surprised he knew. And I suppose you think we all drink vodka and wrestle bears? She teased. Only on Tuesdays, he replied with a straight face. She laughed. Actually laughed. When was the last time someone made her laugh? The next morning, Katya met with the local engineers. The project was complicated. The client wanted modern luxury, but the land was protected. They needed to respect the environment, the community, the culture. It was the kind of challenge she loved. During a break, she walked to the beach. Rafi was there, mending his nets. How's the fancy hotel project? He asked. Complicated. Beautiful. Frustrating. She sat down on the sand beside him. How do you say hello in Tagalog? Kumusta. She repeated it, butchering the pronunciation. He laughed, not meanly, but warmly. Close enough. That became their routine. Every evening after work, she'd find him on the beach. He taught her about the tides, the fish, the constellations that guided him at sea. She told him about Russian winters, about the buildings she designed, about the weight of expectations. He listened. Not just heard. Listened. One night she asked him, Don't you want more than this? Than fishing every day? He thought for a moment. I have the ocean, my family, food on the table. What more is there? Ambition, success, wealth. He smiled. Those are nice, but they're not life. You know what life is? It's my youngest sister graduating next year. It's the way the water looks at dawn. It's sitting here with you, talking about nothing and everything. Something shifted in her chest. The men she knew in Russia measured success in square meters and bank accounts. Rafi measured it in moments, in presence, in peace. She realized she had been chasing the wrong things her whole life. 2 weeks into her stay, a typhoon warning was issued. The team was advised to stay in the hotel, but Katya noticed Rafi's boat was still on the beach. She knew he'd try to secure it despite the weather. She ran out into the wind and rain. He was there, struggling to pull the boat higher onto the sand. Without thinking, she grabbed the rope and pulled with him. The rain soaked through her clothes. The wind whipped her hair into her face. "What are you doing?" he shouted over the storm. "Go back inside." "Not without you." Together they secured the boat. By the time they finished, they were both drenched and laughing. They took shelter under a palm-roofed hut nearby. Lightning illuminated the sky. Thunder rolled across the water. "You're crazy," he said, wringing out his shirt. "Beautiful, but crazy." "You would have done it alone," she said. "That's crazier." He looked at her then. Really looked at her. Not at her face or her body, but into her. He could see every broken promise, every disappointment, every wall she'd built. "Katya," he said softly, "why are you so afraid of being happy?" The question hit her harder than the storm. "Because every time I try," she whispered, "it ends." He moved closer. "What if it doesn't? What if it does? Then at least you tried. At least you felt something real." The rain pounded the roof. She could barely hear her own thoughts over the sound. But she heard her heart. For the first time in years, she heard it clearly. She kissed him. It wasn't planned. Wasn't calculated. It just happened. Like the rain. Like the thunder. Like everything real and wild and true. When they pulled apart, he smiled. "I've wanted to do that since the night we met." "Why didn't you?" "Because you weren't ready. But now." He touched her face gently. "Now you are." The next 3 weeks blurred together. Her project continued, but her focus shifted. She started waking at dawn to watch him fish. He started teaching her Tagalog phrases. They cooked together at his small house. Adobo, sinigang, pancit. She taught him a few Russian words. He butchered them beautifully. His sisters loved her. His mother welcomed her with open arms, even though they barely spoke the same language. Love, Katya learned, had its own vocabulary. But reality waited. Her project was nearly complete. Soon, she'd have to return to St. Petersburg, back to winter, back to her real life. One evening, as they sat on the beach watching the sunset, their sunset, she called it now, Rafi said, "I know you have to leave." Her throat tightened. "I don't want to." "Then, don't. It's not that simple. I have a job, a life, responsibilities. And you'll go back to being unhappy." She wanted to argue, but she couldn't. "I'm a fisherman, Katya. I can't give you a big house or expensive things. I can't give you the life you're used to. I don't want that life anymore," she said, surprised by her own conviction. "I want this. I want you." "Then stay." "What if it doesn't work? What if—" He took her hand. "What if it does?" Those 4 words, the same ones from the storm. What if it does? She flew back to Russia 2 days later. But everything felt wrong. Her apartment felt cold. Her job felt meaningless. Her friends' conversations felt shallow. She couldn't stop thinking about the way the sunrise looked over the Philippine Ocean, the way Rafi's laugh sounded, the way her heart felt full instead of empty. Olga visited one evening, took one look at Katya's face and said, "You fell in love." "I don't know," Katya said. "Maybe. Yes. I don't know. For someone who plans buildings, you're terrible at planning your life." "I'm scared." "Of course you are. Love is terrifying. It's also the only thing worth being terrified of." That night, Katya made a decision. She requested a transfer to her firm's Manila office. They agreed. They needed someone to oversee their Southeast Asian projects. She sold most of her furniture, packed 2 suitcases, bought a one-way ticket. She didn't tell Rafi she was coming. When she arrived in Palawan, she took a tricycle to his village. Her heart pounded the entire ride. What if he'd moved on? What if she was too late? What if... She found him on the beach. Of course. Where else would he be? He was pulling in his nets, his back to the road. She stood there watching him, trying to memorize the moment before everything changed. Then he turned. His eyes widened. The net fell from his hands. "Katya?" She smiled, tears already streaming down her face. "What if it does, Rafi? What if it does work?" He ran to her, picked her up, spun her around like in the movies she used to think were lies. "You came back," he whispered into her hair. "I came home," she corrected. "That was 4 years ago." Now, Katya works remotely for her firm, designing sustainable resorts across the Philippines. She and Rafi built a small house near the beach. She designed it herself, combining Russian efficiency with Filipino openness. Wide windows, ocean breeze, space for his fishing gear and her drafting table. They're not rich, but they're wealthy in ways that matter. His sisters graduated. His mother treats Katya like her own daughter. The village threw them a wedding that lasted 3 days. She wore a white dress during the ceremony and a traditional Maria Clara gown for the reception. He wore a barong Tagalog and couldn't stop smiling. She learned to cook tinola. He learned to make borscht. They speak a mixture of English, Tagalog, and Russian that only they understand. Every morning, she wakes to the sound of waves. Sometimes she joins him on the boat. Sometimes she works on her designs. Always, they watch the sunset together. People ask her if she misses Russia. "I miss the snow sometimes," she admits. "The architecture, my old friends. But I don't miss who I was there. That woman was successful but sad. Here, I'm just me. And that's enough." Rafi overheard her say this once. Later, he told her, "You were always enough, Katya. You just needed to believe it." Last month, she found out she's pregnant. When she told Rafi, he cried. Not from sadness, but from joy so pure it overwhelmed him. Talked about baby names. About teaching their child 2 languages. About showing them both the ocean and the snow. "What if our kid asks how we met?" Rafi wondered. "We'll tell them the truth," Katya said. That their mother stopped believing in love, and their father showed her it was real all along. That evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, Katya thought about the woman she used to be. The one who built walls instead of bridges. Who confused success with happiness. Who thought love was a fairy tale for fools. She was wrong about everything. True love isn't a fairy tale. It's a choice. It's waking up every day and choosing the same person. It's learning a new language, literally and figuratively. It's being terrified and brave at the same time. It's a Russian woman and a Filipino fisherman who had no business falling in love. But did anyway. Because sometimes, love doesn't make sense. Sometimes, it just makes everything right. Katya used to think true love didn't exist, until she met a man who smelled like the ocean and smiled like the sun. Until she learned that home isn't a place. It's a person. And she found hers on a beach in Palawan, holding a fishing net and offering her the one thing she'd given up on: hope. Love doesn't find you when you're ready, she tells people who ask about her story. It finds you when you're brave enough to stop running from it. And every time she says this, Rafi squeezes her hand. Because he knows. He's always known. She was never lost. She was just waiting to be found.